Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
The House of Representatives has officially named Attorney Antonio Bucoy as the spokesperson for the prosecution panel in the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte.
More Filipinos in Israel are now appealing to be repatriated as the Israel-Iran conflict escalates.
An influencer files a complaint over exploitation case involving her own child.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development seeks to expand its fleet of electric vehicles specially designed for persons with disabilities.
First in the news, around 150 Filipinos in Israel are now appealing to be repatriated as the Israel-Iran conflict escalates. Here's the report.
An Iranian news agency released video showing more missiles fired by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps towards Israel. No location or specific date had been provided. Over in Israel, sirens sounded and missiles were seen flying overnight. Israel said 24 civilians had been killed, while nearly 3,000 Israelis had been evacuated due to damage from Iranian strikes. Israeli military said it has struck Iran deep, hitting its nuclear, ballistic, and command capabilities. Iranian officials reported 224 deaths, mostly civilians. In 5 days, Israel launched its air war, its largest ever, on Iran last Friday, after saying it had concluded the Islamic Republic was on the verge of developing a nuclear weapon. But Iran denies seeking nuclear weapons and has pointed to its right to nuclear technology for peaceful purposes. Meanwhile, around 150 Filipinos in Israel are now appealing to be repatriated. They scrambled to get to the bomb shelter.
Mommy.
7 Filipinos were among the wounded, 2 of whom are in critical condition.
Actually, yung
This is the 6th day.
The sixth day, ang titignan natin dito kasi although sasabihin ng mga tao, matagal naman ang nangyayari ito. Di ba? Yung short-term impact, we all know, oil prices, loss of life, tapos yung middle-term impact, stability. But yung long-term impact nito is quite scary. Because you have to remember, if Iran, in case is feeling na natatalo sila, they can declare a jihad. A jihad is it's a war that dates back to the kay King Richard versus the Turks. If they declare a jihad, walang choice ang ibang Muslim countries but to join in on Iran, kakampihan nila, and they will fight all Christian states,
whoever comes in the way.
Whoever comes in the way between them and Israel. And that might signal a third world war. But we're not saying it will happen. We're saying that's why peace should be on the table ASAP. Yung sinasabi ng mga, even the West are saying, peace should be on the table ASAP. Pero yung terms of Iran na yung nuclear capacity, di ba? Eh, kailangan determine, are they really making nuclear arms? Or totoo bang sinasabi ng Iran that yung ginagamit ng nuclear program is merely for energy?
Yeah, and we all know naman in wars both sides suffer and innocents' lives are lost. Kaya ngayon, 'di ba, doon sa atin on our sides, yung mga Filipinos, nakikita natin na although sinabi ni DFA Yusek Ed De Vega yesterday na marami pa rin sa mga Pilipino would like to stay, even nga may mga yung nag-escalate yung conflict dyan sa Iran and Israel, pero sinasabi nila may iba pa rin na gusto na rin na umuwi dahil nga sa uncertainty of the future and of course yung lives.
Tsaka madami lang also from
Safety.
both sides, Iran and Israel, a lot of Filipinos there already have established businesses or got married
sa
and have
Iran
families.
yun, mostly sila mga nakapag-asawa na ng mga Iranian. So
Oo,
sabi nila, if uwi sila dito, paano? Di ba yung
Tsaka yung
pananamit
isang
nila,
na-interview, may business na doon eh.
Yeah.
Oo. Pero before we go, we're all praying for peace, syempre, because we don't want this to be a long drawn out war that will not only affect people in the region but pwedeng maapektuhan ng buong mundo as well. So let's see in the next few days what happens.
All right, in other news, a social media influencer is demanding justice after discovering her child's photo was being sold on a pornographic website. Here's the report.
Social media influencer Queen Heras filed a complaint with the NBI's Violence Against Women and Children Division after discovering her child's photo was being sold on a pornographic website for 1,500 pesos. The influencer said she was alerted by a concerned follower who came across the disturbing post.
Sobrang nabahala ako, sobrang nakakagalit. Nanginginig ako, sobrang galit.
According to Hera, she rarely posts photos of her child on social media.
Minsan pinapakita ko pero sobrang dalang. Sobrang dalang. Hindi ko pinapakita ng nakahubad, kumakain, face lang talaga.
What shocked her even more, other mothers also came forward saying their children had also been exploited.
Para pagkakitaan yung mga ganong, sobrang bata, mga babies, hindi lang anak ko, sobrang dami. Sobrang dami. So as magulang, until now, nanginginig ako. Sobrang naiiyak pa din ako pag naiisip ko na ang daming biktima. So awareness to and eye-opener na din sa lahat, especially sa mga magulang na pag-ingatan natin yung mga anak natin. Ingatan ng pag-post ng pictures, ng video, kasi sobrang hindi natin alam yung tumatakbo sa tao.
The NBI is now investigating and working to trace the uploader. Authorities are also probing whether a group may be behind multiple online child exploitation cases. Meanwhile, experts warn that sharing, the practice of posting children's photos online, can expose minors to serious risks, including long-term emotional harm.
Posible silang magkaroon ng mga mental health concerns paglaki nila, lalo na hindi naman sila aware at hindi sila ang nag-decide na ma-post ang isang photo or video nila online.
Former Congressman Arnie Teves is set to undergo major surgery. He was rushed to the hospital Tuesday morning after complaining of a severe stomach pain. Teves was under detention at Camp Bagong Diwa when he experienced severe discomfort. His lawyer, attorney Ferdinand Topacio, said initial in-house treatment failed, prompting a transfer to a government hospital where doctors recommended immediate surgery. The Bureau of Jail Management and Penology said all protocols for emergency medical care involving high-profile detainees were followed. Teves is facing multiple charges, including the murder of Governor Roel Degamo.
Yeah, for an update, yeah, you're right. Teves has appendix removed at the Philippine
that's a
General Hospital.
appendectomy.
Yeah, so an hour ago, that was a statement from his lawyer, si
Okay, Topa.
Attorney Ferdinand Topacio Jr.
So what they
that's
did-
the latest.
So yung protocol daw siguro, they gave him medicine, hindi gumana, masakit pa rin. So they rushed him. Nalaman na kailangan natanggalin yung appendix. Oo, appendicitis ang tawag doon sa sakit na yun,
Yeah.
no?
So Topacio earlier said Teves was supposed to be taken to a private hospital. But yun nga,
Protocol
doon na lang
kasi
siya
has to be
sa
followed.
PGH.
Oo,
instead.
magaling naman sa PGH.
All right, we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. In an exclusive interview, President Bongbong Marcos vows to improve the country's education, food security, and public safety. Here's the details.
In an exclusive interview, President Bongbong Marcos admits he shares the public frustration over the K-12 program. He said it added years of cost without delivering clear employment advantages.
Kasi it's costing more for the parents. Kasi nadagdagan ng 2 years pa. Magmamatrikulasyon pa yan, maraming mga school supplies, bibili ng libro, lahat. Sa 10 years, wala namang advantage. Wala namang naging advantage. Hindi rin nakukuha sa trabaho.
The president said that while the law remains in place, the Education Department is under orders to improve its implementation. On rice prices, Marcos highlighted record-breaking palay harvest from 2023 to 2025. With production up, he says lower prices are becoming sustainable without relying on subsidies.
Basta ipatuloy natin, magbigay tayo ng makinarya sa farmer, paggandahin natin lahat ng irrigation natin, mag-research tayo sa IRRI, sa UPLB, kung ano yung magagandang bagong variety, ano yung mga planting techniques na mga bago. para gumanda ng production side natin.
The president also directed law enforcement to focus on big-time drug syndicates and prevent shabu from reaching barangays. His marching order: patrol the streets, destroy seized drugs immediately, and restore public trust. The third and last part of the exclusive interview with the president will be released on Friday. It will be available for streaming on the pages of 1PH, One News, News 5, True FM, and Presidential Communications Office.
Nandun kayo.
With over 4 decades of experience, a seasoned litigation lawyer has been named spokesperson of the House prosecution panel in the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte.
The House of Representatives has formally introduced Attorney Antonio Odi Bucoy as a spokesperson of the prosecution panel for the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. Bucoy is a seasoned litigation lawyer with more than 4 decades of experience. He worked with statesmen and legal luminaries like Joker Arroyo, Jose Jokno, and Lorenzo Tañada, who Bucoy said would be ashamed by the current Senate's recent actions.
Mahihiya sila. Ikahihiya nila itong ginagawa ng kasalukuyang Senado. Iba yung komposisyon nun eh. Iba. Umaani ng respeto. Walang patutsada. Ngayon ho, dahil sa actuation nila, maraming patutsada.
According to Bucoy, the prosecution panel will soon file official pleadings before the Senate, which now sits as impeachment court. These filings may include motions or manifestations intended to clarify or respond to the Senate's recent procedural actions. He also echoed former Chief Justice Renato Puno's view that Senate President Chis Escudero committed grave abuse of discretion in handling the proceedings.
Ang mga naging actuation and ruling ni Senate President Chis Escudero as the presiding officer of the impeachment court ay wala ho sa saligang batas yan. Kagaya po ng pag-remand. Hindi po ang pag-remand, ibig sabihin, yung lower court should reconsider. Yung remand ay para sa ordinaryong kaso, sa ordinaryong hukuman, but never sa impeachment court.
As of now, 16 lawyers will represent the vice president in the trial. They are from the Fortun Narvasa and Salazar law firm, which will be led by founding partner attorney Philip Siegfried Fortun. Fortun was also among the defense lawyers of former President Erap Estrada during the 2001 impeachment trial. Senator Coco Pimentel, who was among those who opposed returning the articles of impeachment to the House, advised critics not to elevate the matter to the Supreme Court.
Ako mismo, I will advise not to go to the Supreme Court. Possible delay. Tsaka, ano ma-achieve nun? Ano lang, baka bumalik pa sa step 1.
According to Pimentel, there is also no need for certain senators to inhibit or accuse themselves from the trial. Earlier, the minority bloc in the House called for the inhibition of Senator Judges Amy Marcos and Robin Padilla due to their open support for VP Sara.
Now, to talk more about the impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte, we are joined by Professor Dennis Coronacion, Chair of the UST Department of Political Science. Hi, Prof. Thanks for joining us again. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, siguro, what can you say about hiring two spokespersons for each, like for the House prosecution panel and sa impeachment court?
But the defense
Why do you think there's a need to do that?
The defense will also hire an
yeah, of course.
spokesperson.
Oh, yeah, yun
So
naman talaga, that's
magkakatatlo.
a practice eh. Oh, ito parang hindi ko alam kung meron na nangyari before.
Ano yung impact nito, Prof?
Actually, ang tingin ko po dito, this is the first time that
Right.
This is happening, na may spokesperson yung prosecution at saka yung what do you call this?
Impeachment
Yung Supreme Court. Kasi I think
Impeachment
this is
court.
very important, for the public to understand better what's happening or what will happen during the impeachment. Kasi alam naman natin that there will be so many legal terms that will be used. Tapos yung mga procedural matters and these things cannot be easily understood by the public, so they need a spokesperson in order to communicate in public kung ano yung mga pinag-uusapan doon sa impeachment court.
Pero as I recall kasi, Prof, parang si former Congressman Erin Tanyada was a spokesperson sa impeachment trial, I think, ni Corona. Former
Sa
Chief Justice Corona.
prosecution.
Sa prosecution, no? He was removed. Pero parang you're right in terms sa parang regards to having a spokesperson sa actual impeachment court mismo. I think this was, do you think this was done by SP Cheese to prevent or to dissuade the other senators from talking out on their own opinions here and there? Baka yung imahe nila matarnish, so that's why dinagay na niya ito si Attorney Reginald Tonggol. Actually, sinabi nga ni Attorney Reginald Tonggol, ay oo, possible na ganon para ako na lang magsalita.
Well, yes po, it's possible, pero meron ba makakapigil sa mga senators?
Wala.
Judges kapag gusto nila magsalita.
That's right.
Yun.
So, I don't think may makakapigil sa kanila, no? Magpapa-interview sila hanggat gusto nila.
Alright, and ano pa kaya yung mga aasahan natin ngayon dahil ang daming mga legal luminaries na nagsasalita outside both the House Prosecution Panel and the Impeachment Court saying na this and that, na mali ang ginawa ng Senado. And do you also think na by doing this na maraming mga kritiko ang Senate at nagsasabi na nakakahiya yung kanilang ginawa at talagang napakalayo ng imahe nila ngayon kumpara doon sa mga naunang mga senador natin, mga early 80s, 70s, 90s. Prof.
Well, mali in the sense na niremand nila yung impeachment complaint pabalik doon sa pinanggalingan nito, no? Sa House of Representatives. Whether or not it's legal, I think optics-wise, hindi maganda ang tingnan. Kasi parang nawala yung independence, so-called independence, o tradition of independence of the Senate. Kasi ang lumalabas noong gabi na sila ay nagdesisyon, na kung saan nga nire-remand nila yung impeachment complaint, parang nagmukhang meron silang pinoproteksyonan. Isang powerful figure at yun na nga yung Vice President. Even though pwede naman nila ipagkaila yun, pero yun ang magiging perception o pananaw ng publiko patungkol sa kanilang decision na yun. In fact, sa social media nga, parang lumalabas na yung dominant na komentaryo about their decision was that kumbaga man, sila takot kay Sara Duterte o kaya thereafter their self-preservation instead. So somehow it affects their integrity in the future as they sit senator judges during the impeachment trial. Para pagdududahan na ng mga tao kung sila ba ay independent-minded pa rin o kaya titingnan pa rin nila yung merits of the case once impeachment trial has begun.
Actually, Prof, for example, you were talking about several issues. One contentious issue, Prof, is yung remand, no? Or return. Lininaw ng impeachment court, hindi naman daw. They were just merely asking for a certification. Ang point ni Attorney Bukoy naman, you used the word return eh. Diba? And inamin naman ni spokesperson Reginald Tonggol na sabi niya, there is really no rules regarding this, if it's allowed or not. Basta there is no precedent, so that's why we did it. Kung may umalma, malalaman natin. But ang recommendation ni Senator Coco Pimentel, wag na sanang idala sa Supreme Court to. Kasi gugulo lang ang issue, hahaba, baka mag-step 1. Ang daming gulo, Prof. So what do you think? Do you agree with Senator Coco na wag muna paabutin to Supreme Court as much as possible between the House and Senate muna?
Well, if we are after po doon sa acting on the impeachment complaint as quickly as possible, tingin ko may punto naman po si Senator Coco Pimentel. Pero kung halimbawa madadagdagan pa, kasi itong mga, dahil nga I think it springs from this impeachment, specific impeachment trial, parang unprecedented to The Vice President, tapos in the sense, tinamaan din ng transition from the 19th Congress to the 20th Congress. So marami pong mga first time dito. And parang lumalabas kasi is that the Senate seems to be going beyond the power that's assigned to it by the by our constitution. Kumbaga umaabuso, yun ang imahe na lumalabas eh. Kasi may bukod doon, meron pang mga ano na kumbaga na susupplement yung ganong klaseng negative image about the Senate, na yung bang salita ni Senate President Chis Escudero na wala makakapigil sa Senate.
Yeah.
At saka yung para condescending na treatment nila sa House of Representatives, na hindi sila co-equal dahil sila ay itong mga senador ay sitting as an impeachment court.
Yeah.
Yung mga ganung salita, parang they all point out to an abuse of power, parang ganun ang imahen. So that's why tingin ko pag nagpatuloy yung ganitong klaseng behavior and practice ng mga senador natin, sooner or later baka may magpa-file ng kaso sa Supreme Court regarding that matter.
That's what I wanted to ask, Prof. No? While may point din si Senator Coco na, sige, itawid na natin to, let's go to trial, swift as possible. But then again, it sets a dangerous precedent in the future, because if we don't question tong behavior ng Senado, baka in the future magkaroon ng impeachment proceedings again. Kung ano yung precedent na sinet nila ngayon,
Yun ang susundan.
set in stone na. So parang ipit tayo, mga taong bayan, ipit tayo. Itawid na natin to para mabilis, or should we question the behavior of the Senate? Parang whatever happens, Prof, parang nalugi tayo.
Tama kayo doon. I agree with you na dapat to itong mga kumbaga mga actions ng Senado pointing out to a possible abuse of its power, dapat ito sitahin. At ang makakasita lang dito yung Supreme Court, another branch of our government. Sometimes I think we have to set aside yung convenience. O kaya yung goal natin na mapabilis yung pagkakaroon ng disposition ng kaso na yan. Pero not at the expense of yung constitutional principles. Tsaka yung mga certain abuses of an institution's power. Tama kayo dyan. Tapos, ano pa to, since this is going to be story, it will also set a precedent doon sa mga future impeachment cases. So, kung meron mga magiging actions doon, motions sa kinakailangan resolve, somehow ibe-base nila sa mga nakaraan. So, baka magiging parte ito ng kasaysayan ng mga impeachment cases. So, itong i-cite as a possible kumbaga man para model for a future decision that will be made about a future impeachment.
At saka sinasabi nila, 'di ba, Prof, itong constitution natin was written merely to protect the citizens of this country, not to protect a certain individual, lalo na kung sila ay inaakusahan ng misuse of public funds. Pero my question here, Prof, ay may iba kasi, there are calls, and I'm sure you're aware of this, na mag-inhibit yung mga senators na clearly hindi sila impartial doon sa nangyayari today because of, their statements. And of course, nakita din natin, yung dalawa doon ay sumama pa doon sa respondent sa ibang bansa at nag-call pa for the elections for 2028. And sinagot ito ni Vice President Sara Duterte, saying na kung may ganung call, dapat mag-inhibit din yung ilang mga anti-Duterte, because clearly they're also anti their family, na hindi sila magiging impartial pagdating ng impeachment trial kung yun ay kumakarating tayo doon sa punto na yun. What do you make of that, Prof?
Pero hindi pa sila judges na.
Oo.
Tawag dito, yun ang problema, dahil part ng nature ng impeachment process natin is that it is political in character.
Right.
It's a political exercise. And hindi naman ho talaga to yung mga well-trained na mga judges sa mga courts, wherein part of their training is that they should become objective and impartial. Ito po mga senador natin, these are politicians who do not have, most of them do not have any experience in terms of yung mga trials, mga court trials, legal trials. So definitely, hindi nila kumbaga man, mahirapan na silang i-restrain yung kanilang sarili pagdating sa pagpapahayag ng kanilang mga pagiging partial or partisan sa impeachment trial. So again, parte yun ng nature ng isang impeachment trial. It's a political process. Kaya nga ako, I don't expect our senator judges to become impartial, or at least siguro pinagdadasal ko na lang na pag
We're at
nakita nila
that
yung mga
point.
ebidensya, tapos overwhelming naman against the accused, okay, in favor of the accused, they're going to make a judgment based based on the evidence.
Yeah.
Pero ako pessimistic na ako sa ngayon tingin ko kasi
But it's good that you
nakita ko nung
mentioned that,
Oo.
na hopefully nga mag-base sila sa merits of the case, because nagkaroon ng recent interview si Senator Juan Ponce Enrile saying na in the start of the impeachment process of now deceased Justice Corona, at one point sabi niya talagang magno-no siya ia-acquit niya yun yung kanyang verdict. Pero during the course of the trial, when yung kanyang speech, nagsabi, umamin siya na meron siyang $2 million at hindi dineclare sa SALN, dun daw nag-twist yung kanyang vote. So, do you think may pagkakataon na ganon among the senator judges na they will really base, 'di ba, yung kanang decision doon sa magiging ebidensya, and that they will be impartial during the course of the trial?
Well, I hope so kasi may mga naririnig ako mga bali-balita na meron daw talagang malalakas ang ebidensya against the Vice President. And if only they will give a chance to see this evidence. Think ko baka yung those who are in favor of the Vice President, baka magbago ang kanilang isipan, baka mag-pivot sila, no?
Yeah.
From going with the Vice President to considering what do you call this, convicting her basis of
Pero,
Prof,
incident.
indulge me, no, kasi sabi nila bakit sa United States, no, which our rules of impeachment, and part of that constitutional impeachment, Article 11, was based also on the rules sa US impeachment. Bakit daw gumagana ang impeachment sa US at sa atin hindi? Pero I read the Constitution of the US. I looked at the structure of government last night, browsing over it. The US has only two major political parties in play. So sabihin mo na kahit political in nature ito, hindi dependent ang isang member ng Democratic or Republican Party sa survey niya. It's still dependent on performance because the party will assess you. Hindi tulad dito na binase natin sa two-party system. Dito, it doesn't matter kung anong partido ka Kung ano sino yung tinatry mong political person, the people watching will still be the one to determine kung ano yung reaction mo. So, parang medyo flawed ata yung pag-adapt natin ng US system because we have a totally different structure. Do you think in hindsight, in the long term, we should review that Article 11 of yung provisions sa impeachment on how we constitute an impeachment court?
Yes, because it should be based on the dynamics in this country, no? Hindi po and structures as well.
Yeah.
Sabi niyo doon, two-party system, and that they have strong parties, Sa atin naman, we have weak political parties, kaya the parties cannot sanction kung ano may magiging decision. Kaya put pressure on the senator judges just in case mali-mali yung kanilang decision.
Yeah.
But I think kung meron mang magiging pressure o mag-hold ng accountability dito sa mga senator judges natin, ito po yung publiko. Kasi they are not mere spectators in the impeachment trial. Remember, historically, or in the past, yung mga nangyayari sa impeachment, nagre-react yung mga tao. Just like what happened to the ERAP impeachment trial. Nung hindi mabuksan yung brown envelope, nagkaroon ng text brigade, tapos nangyari ang EDSA 2. So it is subject to public opinion, and our senator judges should remember what happened in the past in the past impeachment trials, at baka mahusgahan sila ng publiko pag pamali-mali ang kanilang decision.
Alright, siguro lastly na lang, very quick na lang, Prof, what do you make of the 16 lawyers who will represent VP Sara sa kanyang impeachment trial? Some people would say ang OA daw overkill, masyadong marami. Other people would say, well, it's her right. Your thoughts on that po?
Well, yes, it's a right, pero I think yung pagpili ng sobrang daming lawyers to defend her I think it's part of her SIWAR. Oo. To send a message to her opponents na I can mobilize as many as 16 lawyers to defend me, and
Bukod
I
sa
think it's
mataas na
part of
survey niya.
Akin lang iniisip ko, 16 lawyers, so siguro bawat isa dyan may assignment. O ikaw sa ganitong
Yeah.
ng complaint, ikaw naman sa ganyan.
Yeah, right.
Well, yun, at least mas efficient, mas organized. Pero kung ang bawang goal is to intimidate, well, she can afford it naman, mayaman naman siya, no? Pero if the ano is to intimidate, I think yun ang din goal doon, to
Cywar
intimidate
talaga.
the opposition.
Alright.
Thank you. Haba-haba. Apat lang na articles atang inano sa kanila, ilan, di ba? Plus 16 lawyers. Anyway, mahabang usapan pa to. Pero thank you for your time. Professor Dennis Coronacion, he's the chair of the UST Department of Political Science.
So parang ano daw yan parang sa pag-ooperahan ka, di ba, you have anesthesiologist, you have
the
yung
surgeon.
the surgeon, meron ka sa heart,
meron
di
yung
ba?
taga-tahi, yung bantay sa pressure mo, ng blood pressure mo, di ba?
Heart doctor. So, ganun. Anyway, in other news, the Social Welfare Department is looking to expand its fleet of electric vehicles designed specifically for PWDs. Secretary Rex Gatchalian said PWD beneficiary groups have used the agency's Sustainable Livelihood Program to develop a pilot fleet of 20 PWD-friendly e-vehicles. The DSWD's plan to expand this e-vehicle fleet follows a viral incident where a PWD was physically beaten and electrocuted inside a public bus. Gatchalian clarified that it had been underway long before the incident, but the video only underscored the urgency of the program.
Oo, well, magandang balita to. Pero
Yes, kasi ang dami talaga until now, marami pang gagawin para sa PWD communities in terms of their accessibility.
Pero dapat ang end goal nito is not a specialized fleet for PWDs. Dapat regardless kung ano yung mass transport there, dapat lahat friendly for them.
Kasi can you imagine yung mga
Integration
traditional jeepney ngayon, it's really hard for the PWD community, lalo na yung may mga naka-wheelchair, diba, to get up. Tapos ang maganda dyan, dapat kaakibat din lahat ng infrastructure PWD friendly. Kasi kunyari, let's say pumunta si PWD sa isang lugar, nakasakay nga siya dito, very comfortable dito sa fleet na to, sa e-vehicle na to. But when he or she goes to the destination, wala namang ramp, walang accessibility para sa mga PWD. Dapat ganun din, no? So hand in hand dapat yung pag-develop nila nito.
Alright, let's discuss that further with DSWD Assistant Secretary Irene Dumlao.
Good morning, ASEC. Thanks for joining us again.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Ma'am Angela and Tiago. Good morning po and good morning sa lahat po ng sumusubaybay ng inyong programa.
Opo, this is actually good news po, no, para sa ating PWD community, itong fleet po ng e-vehicles. Ang tanong po dito, ASEC, ilang po bang e-vehicles ang target po na ma-deploy ng DSWD for PWDs?
Actually po, next week we will be launching yung 20 na electric transportation services. That will be operated by Sustainable Livelihood Program associations ng DSWD. Ng mga miyembro po ay mga persons with disabilities. This is actually an effort nga of the department to provide safe and accessible transport services for persons with disabilities, as we also endeavor to create or establish a person with disability inclusive society.
So
and ito nga po, while we will be inaugurating 20 by next week, the Secretary has given instruction yesterday when we inspected the units na kinakailangan ma-expedite yung processes natin so that we could scale up further yung pong programa. In fact, we have set a meeting with the Department of Transportation para ma-facilitate din all necessary documents para magamit for public transport yung pong mga vehicles na ito. Currently kasi, yung dun sa pilot natin, ginagamit siya for private shuttle service ng mga private companies. Marami kasi tayo mga Sustainable Livelihood Program beneficiaries na mga persons with disabilities na nagtatrabaho rin po sa mga call centers. Yan, so dito po ginagamit nila. So yan, we're
Okay.
looking at scaling it up.
Asek, itong mga e-vehicles na to, no, you said 20 of them. Are these going to be exclusively for PWDs? Tsaka ang katanungan din ng mga ibang members natin ng society is, yung mga terminal or stopping points itong mga PWD-friendly vehicles, will they also be friendly for PWDs mismo? Kasi kung yung vehicle daw friendly pero yung area kung saan sila sasakay mahirap puntahan, baka it defeats the purpose
Infrastructure
daw.
itself.
Oo.
Yeah. Actually, ganito po, no, kaya tayo makikipag-usap din with the Department of Transportation because when we use this for public transport na talaga, we have to ensure that the bus stops will be safe, will be accessible, and will be person with disability friendly. Kasi may mga ramps din na kinakailangan available, no, in those areas. Second, tinitingnan yung we would like to mention na yung mga buses make use of an application. It's a mobile application na kung saan doon nagre-register yung mga persons with disabilities. That's where they indicate yung mga pick-up points nila. Kaya nga, sa kwento nila kahapon, lalabas na lang sila kung alam nilang malapit na yung vehicle na mag-pick up sa kanila o mag-ferry sa kanila. And then, another thing, cashless din yung payment for this. Yung binabayad nila, yung pamasahe nila, the usual na cost ng pamasahe, no, na binabayad like the usual public transport. But this one, mas convenient sa kanila, mas comfortable for them, but at lesser cost. No? I mean, competitive yung price with the public transport.
Okay.
And of course, ito rin nga, operated by persons with disabilities. Kasi sila yung mga members ng Sustainable Livelihood Program associations natin. So, yan talagang inclusive, no, yung approach natin dito. And we empower our person with disabilities.
Yeah. Okay. So, since you mentioned po na for inaugural po nitong e-vehicles na po na ito, Fleet for the PWDs, ay 20 units lang siya, which areas po ba yung tinatarget po natin muna? Ulit. Just to clarify lang po.
Yes, ang tina-target po natin is 10 local government units within the National Capital Region. So yan muna kasi yung mga na-identify na meron tayong mga na-organize na Sustainable Livelihood Program Association.
Okay.
So sila po yung mga mag-ooperate muna. But we're looking at expanding na nga po and identifying other cities na malaki rin yung bilang ng mga
But which
persons with
specific
disabilities
location
na
po?
may mga associations.
Apo. Which specific location po?
Let me we have that list already. Let me just check kung saan dito sa Metro Manila yung mga areas na po na mabibigyan natin. Actually, we will be giving we have organized 4 Sustainable Livelihood Associations in Quezon City. We also have in Mandaluyong, in Pasay, and in Manila. So ito pong mga buses na ito will be distributed to the SLPAs in this area. Pero meron rin tayo, Mandaluyong, Pasay, Manila, and then Quezon.
Okay. And then, in the long run, para po sa iba pang lugar, not just here in NCR, kailan po natin tinatarget? Ano pong timeline natin to be able to introduce din po also sa iba pang lugar?
Yeah. Actually, let me just add na meron rin po tayo pala sa Malabon, dalawa rin in Caloocan, dalawa rin in Muntinlupa, San Juan, and then 1 in Pasig and Las Piñas. So, yan, total of 20 buses po yan na madidistribute. But sabi ko nga po kanina, we're looking at further expanding this soon as we finalize and firm up discussions with the Department of Transportation and also looking at possibilities of maybe putting up also some other metros in our country.
Right. So, ilan po ulit yung capacity ng isang unit?
Actually, depende po doon sa disabilities no,
Yeah.
or varied abilities ng
Oo.
ating mga persons with disabilities. Kasi kung wheelchair, actually pwede 4 wheelchair doon. Kasi pagbukas nung door, right in front of the door, pwedeng 2 doon na naka-wheelchair, and then doon sa loob pa. So pwedeng 2. Pero kung hindi naman naka-wheelchair, so pwedeng i-flatten yung seats na naka-fold currently. And then pwedeng i-occupy yon ng 4 persons with disabilities. And then sa loob, merong mga additional seats. So depende doon sa mga persons with disabilities who will be riding the bus.
Yung operational hours po, do we have details on that as well?
Well, dahil currently nga, these are used as private shuttles of our persons with disabilities are working in private companies. Ano po yan, depende dun sa oras.
Depende
din
pa rin
nung
sa kanila.
pong, pagpasok. Oo.
Okay.
But Angela, we're looking at, making use of this as regular public transport
Right.
vehicles. So, pwedeng maging 24 hours, but depende rin doon sa mga associations. Because I'd like to point out that this vehicles doesn't just provide safe and accessible transport services to our persons with disabilities, but it's also a livelihood activity for them. Sila po kasi yung kumikita, so sila yung mag-ooperate, and then whatever income generated from this service will be divided amongst all members. So,
that's nice.
napakalaking tulong din sa kanila.
Yeah.
In fact, the DSWD has assisted these associations in terms of capacity building. So we did some social preparation, we oriented them how to operate, and then other information that are relevant and necessary were shared to them. And then sila na rin yung nag-ooperate. So napakaganda because we're not just providing an accessibility to persons with disabilities, but we're also empowering them to really be part of our society.
Okay. So lastly na lang po, ASEC, kasi may mga nagsasabi dito, ilang months po ba yung preparation po nitong project na to? Because may mga nagsasabi na, kaya nilang ginawa to because of yung mga ilang insidente na nare-report po natin dito, tulad na lamang po na may nabugbog na PWD sa isang bus recently, and yung isang report din na sinisingil ng doble bayad yung isang PWD kasi medyo malaki siya, tapos may wheelchair, tapos bumaba na lang siya ng jeep dahil nga na-embarrass na siya. So, ilang months po ba yung preparation nito, ASEC?
Actually, Angela, matagal na natin itong ginawa dahil matagal na rin itong Sustainable Livelihood Program. But last year, the Secretary has kasi parang 1 year the making ata, if I'm not mistaken. So last year, nagbigay talaga ng instructions si Secretary na mabigyan nga ng magandang livelihood naman itong mga persons with disabilities that they could really benefit from. And then last February, during the anniversary of the DSWD, we already launched itong programa na ito. In fact, there was this vehicle that was presented to all visitors of the DSWD. It just so happened na at that time, pilot implementation pa lang siya. That was this February. No? So nag-pilot pa lang. And then ito nga, we were informed that the additional vehicles were already available. So yesterday, in-inspect po namin para matiyak talaga na magiging maayos naman yung magiging operation nito. So this idea was not conceptualized. It wasn't
overnight.
born out of it wasn't born overnight, and it wasn't the result of a thought that happened just because may nag-viral po, no.
Right,
No, matagal na po talaga natin na ini-envision, lalong-lalo na ni Secretary Rex Gatchalian na magkaroon ng mga ganitong programa following, of course, the directive of President Marcos Jr. to provide safe and accessible transport services for persons with disabilities and the vulnerable sector. And, of course, this is in adherence also to the Magna Carta for persons with disabilities and part of our fulfillment doon sa UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So, lahat naman po ito talagang ginagawa natin as lead in social protection.
All right, we are looking forward to the expansion of this fleet. For the meantime, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, DSWD Assistant Secretary Irene Dumlao. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
Now, concern over online misinformation in the Philippines has hit a record high. According to the Reuters Institute Digital News report, 67% of Filipinos said they are worried about fake news. That number is a 4-point rise from the figure in 2024 and a 10-point leap from 2020. This places the Philippines 9 points above this year's global average and 7 points above the average for the Asia-Pacific region. The study surveyed over 97,000 people across 48 countries, including more than 2,000 Filipino adults.
Former President Donald Trump's family business has launched a new mobile service and smartphone under the name Trump Mobile. It will use existing networks from major U.S. carriers and offer a sleek gold $499 smartphone. The service, priced at $47.45 per month, will include features like unlimited texting to 100 countries, telemedicine access, and roadside assistance. Eric Trump said U.S.-based manufacturing could begin in the future. The service is managed by T1 Mobile LLC through its ownership, though its ownership remains unclear.
Many pet owners consider their animals as family. That's why a fur parent in Taguig couldn't hide their joy after their missing French Bulldog was finally found. Para bigyan ng mukha ang balita, Mobile Journal, Amy Atienza.
From lost to rescued. Yan ang kwento ng French Bulldog na si Pablo matapos niyang makawala sa kanilang tahanan.
Napukaw ang atensyon ng maraming netizens nang mapanood ang CCTV footage na ito. Isang fur mom kasi ang nawala ng kanyang French Bulldog na nagngangalang Pablo. Ayon kay Meg, June 12 nang mawala ang alagang aso. At sa kanilang paglapit sa barangay para humingi ng tulong, nakita nila ang lalaking nakavan na nakakuha sa kanilang fur baby.
So, nung pagbalik namin dun sa barangay, nung nire-check namin, ayun, nakita namin sa ibang cameras na andun lang yung aso ko along Bantayan Road, dito sa May Tipas, Taguig. Andun lang siya, paikot-ikot lang siya.
Kwento ni Meg, pabalik-balik sila sa barangay hanggang sa naisipan nilang humingi ng tulong gamit ang social media.
Tapos, nagpunta rin po kami sa police station dito po sa Taguig, and then they advised us to post po muna yung footage and yung mukha po ng lalaki at saka po yung plate number.
Ang rescuer ni Pablo, nakilala nating si Aline Peña. Kwento ni Aline, duda na agad siyang asong kalye si Pablo kaya naman kinupkup niya muna ito habang hinahanap ang owner.
Tapos, nung kakanan na ako, tumawid sa harap namin without even looking or nothing. So that proves siya talagang yung house dog, di ba, na nakawala.
Matapos ang 5 araw na pagkawalay sa kanyang pamilya, June 16, Lunes ng hapon nang ma-reunite si Pablo sa kanyang fur family. Happy ending! Kaya ang pamilya ni Pablo, malaki ang pasasalamat sa kumupkop sa kanya.
Just wanted to thank him for saving Pablo kasi nakita niya na sa daan. Ayaw niya masagasaan eh. Meron akong naramdaman doon.
Totoo ngang walang mawawala sa iyo kung gagawa ka ng mabuti. Dahil madalas, may balik din niyang maganda sa iyo. Mobile journalist Amy Atienza po, hatid ang mukha ng balita.
A new global report from UNESCO and the IFC reveals that while more women are earning degrees, many are still locked out of high-paying jobs, prompting urgent calls for cross-sector reforms to close the education-to-employment gender gap. Mobile Journal Denise Valdez Sancho has the report.
Despite progress being seen in higher education for women, equality in the workplace remains elusive. Anchored in a new joint report by UNESCO and the International Finance Corporation, representatives, partners, and experts joined forces to tackle gender inequality in education and employment.
we observe that there is a big gender disparities, and especially the female students, female graduates have difficulties in finding job opportunities in the labor market. And even if they found jobs in the labor market, they have a much more difficult careers than the male counterparts. And we believe that this has to be mitigated and this has to be changed.
Panelists pointed to structural and cultural barriers, from occupational segregation to hiring discrimination and the unequal burden of care work. Women are still overrepresented in lower-paying fields like education and clerical work, while men dominate higher-paying technical and leadership roles. But beyond diagnosing the problem, this session was a call to action.
Women need to feel that in those ambitious goals of the country, that anybody can qualify for that ambitious future.
The panel emphasized that closing the gender gap isn't just about education. It requires coordination among sectors, industries, the government, and educational institutions must work together to ensure systems are in place that support women throughout their careers. They also stressed the need for upskilling, reskilling, and recognition of lifelong learning, as well as greater participation of women in non-traditional fields.
We make a lot of actionable recommendations in the report, but when it comes to the implementations, I know that it may be very difficult because I think this kind of gender perspective is deeply embedded in the society, communities, and also the change of the mind settings of all levels of the entities, including household, the job seekers themselves, and also by parents and a few employers and the private sectors will be needed. So that's why we suggest that the harmonized and the concerted efforts will be needed to make changes in every part of every segment of the societies and the economies.
Education is only the first step. More than this, bridging the gender gap between education and employment requires collective action and a shift towards change that truly supports all genders across all nations. Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho. We are One News.
Ayan, keep your pets safe.
Yes.
All right. Before we let you go, I'd like to leave everyone with a quote. Perseverance is not a long race. It is many short races, one after the other. A quote from Walter Elliott. That wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.